Woo! What's going on, guys? Holmes Form coming at you guys today with another video. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about a former Detroit Lion, and that former Detroit Lion is Lions offensive tackle TYRELL CROSBY. He completely rips the organization and the coaching staff in an article that came out, through the Free Press. I think it was Dave Burkett, who did the interview with him. I couldn't read the Free Press article, but I read other articles kind of saying what it said, because the Free Press, you have to pay for it on my phone, and I don't have a subscription. But this article came out, and it had, like I said, Crosby destroying the Lions organization and the coaching staff from everybody. And it kind of bothered me on both sides. I'm not here to white knight the Lions organization or anything like that, but I hate when players come up with stuff like this. I hate it when former players. I hated it when CJ did it, when Calvin Johnson. I hated it when DeAndre Levy did it. I just feel that it's really unnecessary, that it needs to be said, especially when your career is done. I guess it's just when your career is done, you can say anything you want, right? You can pretty much say whatever you want, because as you're still employed by the NFL or a team or whatever, you kind of keep your mouth shut. But this to me just feels like another disgruntled, butthurt former player that comes out. That, to me, it feels like that. Now, we all know who TYRELL CROSBY is. 6'4", 310-pound left tackle that come out of Oregon back in 2018, drafted in the 5th round. A guy that probably slipped in the draft a little bit, because I think he was coming off an injury, or he acquired some type of injury. I don't remember the injury. I think it was a chest, though. I think he had a chest injury coming out of Oregon. I could be wrong about that injury, but he did slip in the draft, and it was it was actually a good draft pick by Bob Quinn. A lot of people saying that could it be possibly one of the steals of the draft. Now, during the 3 years with the Lions, he only started 18 games. Suffered multiple injuries during his career as a Detroit Lion, from like his knee, his hamstring. He might have still had that chest thing going on. And most notably, he had a back injury, and we'll get back to that back injury. So he was a guy that, like I said, 18 games. He was a swing tackle, meaning he was like pretty much the first he was actually the first offensive tackle off the bench when somebody got hurt, when one of the tackles got hurt. And that's, I think, one of the reasons why he started 18 games in 3 years. Most notably, too, back in 2020, when we acquired Big V from the Philadelphia Eagles and paid him a lot of money to be our right tackle, and he ended up missing like 10, 11 games. And I think Crosby started 11 games. And he looked good. He looked like he was going to maybe possibly be the 2021 right tackle for the Detroit Lions. He wasn't perfect, but he did show some promise. Now, what do the Lions do? They go out and draft in the 1st round, 7th overall, left tackle, out of Oregon, an Oregon Duck, Penei Sewell. So right away, he's not going to take Decker's spot. People thought maybe Decker was going to get traded somehow or released. That was never going to happen, though. And Sewell's going to take over left tackle. Sewell goes to right tackle. Now there's talks about TYRELL CROSBY being on the trade block, okay? And there was rumblings that he wasn't very happy with the situation. He thought he earned the right to start in 2021 at right tackle, and then you heard little chirps here and there how he wasn't happy. So 2021 camps start coming around. We start to get back into football again. And what does TYRELL CROSBY do? He misses a voluntary training camp. Now, he is a veteran. It's voluntary. I understand that. But when you're a guy that's going to possibly maybe, get beat out again, you're probably going to want to show up. You're probably going to want to show up to that camp and show, A, that you're interested in becoming the starter, and B, you're not going to take anybody's crap. You don't care that they drafted a tackle of the future. Because Sewell's going to play right tackle here from get-go. It just wasn't even an option to get rid of Decker. But you're a veteran, Crosby. He should have shown that he cared and came. But like I said, it's voluntary. It is voluntary, so he doesn't have to show up. But I think he should have showed up. It was a mistake, in my opinion, not doing it. So then he goes on in this story, Tyrell Crosby, on how he thinks that the Detroit. Well, he didn't say he thinks. He says he knows. He knows that the Detroit Lions held it against him for him not showing up in those voluntary camps. Now, I don't have an answer for that, yes or no. They may have not. But this is like, it's kind of like a test. It's kind of like a test, If you're not going to show up, okay, then maybe you don't care. Maybe they did put it against them. Maybe they did hold it against them. Maybe they were not happy. But anyways, he comes to camp, right, and then he starts complaining about. And then he starts complaining. This is in his story that Anthony Lynn was throwing shade at him during practice. Apparently, I think it was Campbell too, or something like that. That he was throwing shade at him because he didn't show up to those mini camps, didn't show up to those little OTAs, whatever that they were. It was voluntary. So, and then, so he's complaining about that. He's complaining about Anthony Lynn. He's complaining about all that. And then his reasoning for not going to those camps too, I should have mentioned earlier, that he was homesick. That's what bugs me, I think, even the most. Because during COVID, it was all during his COVID restrictions, going home. Probably a lot tougher maybe to go home, can't jump on a plane as easy as you could be before, or just who knows, just the COVID was going on, and just he couldn't get home, and then finally he was homesick. Well, that to me is an excuse, homesick, because what are the other 90 guys that are in camp doing? There's another group of 90 plus players, however many in camp, that are just as homesick as you, dude. That are just as homesick. They miss their friends. They miss their families. They miss chilling out, with their homeboys. They miss their girlfriends. They're there. They're there, even though, some are probably not in jeopardy of losing their jobs like you, but you still could have been a good swing tackle for this team. But you decided not to come, and then whatever. It's voluntary. I think that was a mistake, not going. And then using the word homesick, I think, is an excuse. I think it's just basically just pretty much saying that you don't care. Like you could have said anything. I wouldn't have said homesick, because I just would have left it at it's voluntary. I just would have left it at that. Saying you miss your friends and your family and like where you live. Everybody does that, man. They all miss their friends and family. You just leave it at, hey, I just couldn't get there. It was voluntary. I decided to work out at home. You could have just said that. You didn't have to use the words homesick. But that's just me. Anyways, he comes to camp later on. Obviously, he gets Anthony Lynn chirping at him. Apparently Holmes too. I think. I mean Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell. Wow. And so then there's rumblings in the locker room that he's not, that it's he's kind of being that negative force in the locker room. So it goes as far as Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes taking him into the office and explaining to him about or having a talk with him about his attitude. That he might not be a good fit for this team if he keeps this up. Don't act the way you're acting, this and that, whatever. So he goes back to practice. He gets put on the second unit. He gets put on the second unit right away. Sewell's here. He's apparently still not happy. Doesn't really play a lot of preseason. This is Crosby. Crosby ends up playing some more preseason at the end of the year. And then they try to put him on the injured. What's it called? They try to put him on the injured. Waived. They injure him. So that means that's days later after the last preseason game. So that means he has a chance to turn it down, because they offered him an injury settlement too as well. They offered him an injury settlement. He turned it down, and he sought medical opinions from other outside sources, so other doctors. And then there it was discovered that he had a degenerating back condition where he had to get his back fused. His vertebrae had to be fused back together, and it was something that the Lions misdiagnosed. They misdiagnosed this. And then, like, during all that stuff, during all this melee, all this cluster F that was going on, their head trainer at the time ended up getting fired by Dan Campbell. Dan Campbell fired him. So I don't know if that guy was the one who misdiagnosed Tyrell Crosby or it was somebody else who misdiagnosed him, but that is what happened. But he ended up getting put on IR, missed the whole year, and then now he comes out and throws all this shade. He was even punished, I think, during the year too for missing a workout for like $5,000. This is Crosby, and he said he was doing back treatment at the time. So, you know, there was stuff going on. There was it seems like a lot of miscommunication was going on around here. This new regime, they have an open door policy. They've explained that till they're blue in the face. Brad Holmes has done it. Dan Campbell has said it. Even when Dan Campbell was addressed by this today, apparently he's like, you know, I'm not going to address the player, but I'm going to address the situation. Bottom line, he said, this is an open door policy and guys can come talk to me anytime. So that to me explains like Tyrell Crosby never really went and talked to Dan Campbell. It took Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes to literally pull him into the office and talk about his attitude. But I'm not here to, like I said, to be the white knight for the Detroit Lions organization. They make mistakes, you know. They obviously don't. Nobody is perfect in life, even professional football players and coaches and trainers and doctors, whatever. They misdiagnosed them. That's on the Lions. They worked out the situation where they had to fire a guy if he made that diagnosis. The Lions, according to Crosby, ignored his back condition. So this goes kind of both ways. But in the end, I think this is just nothing but butthurtness from Tyrell Crosby. He had a chance to probably beat out Sewell. Was it going to happen? Probably not. Probably not, but he had an opportunity to. It felt like, or seemed like when from reading and hearing, that Crosby pouted. Didn't want to come to camp. It was voluntary, but if you're going to, in a jeopardy of losing your job, I think you're going to want to show up. That's just my opinion. But you do what you want because it is voluntary. Then he comes to camp, gets hurt, pulled in the office, making some rumblings in the locker room that the new regime didn't like, and then they pulled him aside for it, and they talked to him about it. He ended up playing a little bit. He ended up being on the second unit. He wasn't going to start over Sewell, no matter what. And then he ended up trying to get waived injured. He turned down an injury settlement, like I said. He turned this down, turned that down, went out and got a second opinion, and he ended up having a degenerative spine. So that's just, and now his NFL career is probably in jeopardy. Maybe a year or two off will do him some work. He is a younger dude. He's not old by any stretch. Maybe he can come back. I wish him nothing but the best. But to me, it just seems like he's crying. It just seems like he's just, you know, it's just kind of a waste of time, in my opinion. I don't know why this comes out now. There's been nobody that has thrown any shade at Dan Campbell or Brad Holmes yet. This is the first guy to do it, saying that it's all a big farce, that they don't really care about anybody. They just treat you like a piece of meat. Some of that could be true in the NFL circles. It could be true. It is a business. It's very cutthroat. But the Lions knew you were hurt. They wanted nothing to do with you. They offered you an out. You decided you didn't want to do it. And then you got put on IR because of it. Don't take it personal. It's just what it is. So I just think it was a little bit ridiculous. People will run with this. And, you know, nothing's changed. SOL. You know, there's a little bit of a feel in SOL too, but there's always two sides to this story. Crosby's going to tell his story, and it seems like the organization's not going to really bite on it. The organization itself didn't say a word. Dan Campbell's the only one who said something about it, and he didn't really even address Tyrell Crosby. He just wished him luck on his next adventure. He says, I wish him nothing but the best. I wish him luck. But I'm not going to talk about the situation. I'll just talk about how it's an open door policy here, and you can come talk to me anytime. That, to me, kind of tells me that Crosby didn't do that, take that opportunity to talk to his head coach or his new GM. Just, that's how it feels. I don't know. Like I said, two stories to everything, and we don't know the other side of the story. We know Crosby's side. We don't know the other side. But that's it, guys. That's it. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for hit the subscribe button, get all my videos, hit the notification bell to get all of them, and then like and comment. What you guys feel about the Tyrell Crosby situation? I think it's a little bit of fluff. I think it's unnecessary at this time, but you know, it's just, we're closer to football, and now we're gonna get these kind of football stories, man. But thanks a lot, guys. One Pride, go Lions. Boom.